What most people want to know is, are we going to leave at the end of this month or not? What's your view?
Well, we all want to leave at the end of this month, and it depends how quickly we can get a deal through and then the time that's necessary for the legislation. But the critical thing...
There's less than a week to go now, isn't there, for the Attorney-General Geoffrey Cox going to Brussels today to try and get something, a concession?
Time is very short, but what I would say is, compared to where we were a month ago, the situation has been transformed in a positive direction. Our ask of the EU is an important ask. It's a significant ask. It's a legally significant ask. But it is one ask, and it's a simple one. We need substantive changes that will allow the Attorney-General to change his advice to the government that says that at the moment, theoretically, we could be trapped in the backstop indefinitely. And I think the EU understand that we need that change. And I think they believe that we need that change because they've seen what happened in Parliament when the original withdrawal agreement was voted on. So both sides understand what needs to happen.
They may understand, but what are the signals that the EU are prepared to move on this?
Well, I think the signals we are getting are reasonably positive. I don't want to overstate them because I think there's still a lot of work to do, but I think they do understand that we are being sincere. I think they are beginning to realise that we can get a majority in Parliament because they're seeing the signals coming from the people who voted against the deal before, who are saying, crucially, that they are prepared to be reasonable about how we get to that position, that we can't legally be trapped in the backstop.
Okay, now I understand.
But they want to know that we can't be.
Obviously, you're not going to give us the details of these negotiations, but just in terms of the principle, is the government, through the Attorney-General, are you still pressing on having a time limit or an exit mechanism for the backstop?
Well, we are saying to the EU that the crucial thing is that as a sovereign parliament, it mustn't be possible to trap us in the European Union's customs union indefinitely. And that's the crucial point. How we get there, as Michael Tomlinson, who's one of the spokesmen for the ERG wing of the Conservative Party, said, how we get there is something that we're prepared to be flexible about.
And
but the crucial thing is that we need to know that as a sovereign parliament, we can't be trapped in the customs union.
So could that flexibility mean greater focus on the arbitration mechanism that already exists in the document?
Well, there could be a role for an arbitration mechanism, but it would have to be a fair arbitration mechanism that both sides recognised is fair. But I think the crucial thing that we are looking for is to see whether Geoffrey Cox is going to be able to change his advice to the government. And I think that when I speak to, the week before last, I met 10 European foreign ministers, and I think they do understand that this is the key to unlocking the situation. And I also think that they want to solve this problem. Brexit is a shadow hanging over the European Union. They have lots of other challenges they want to get on and deal with. They want to move on as well. So I think with goodwill on all sides, it is possible to find a way through. But
you'll know very well the kind of opposition there is in Conservative benches about this, and it's by no means certain that you'll be able to win the vote next week on Theresa May's deal. So what then?
Well, it isn't certain, and that's why we've got a lot of work to do. And the most important thing is getting the substantive legal changes that we need from the EU Commission.
Which you've conceded is by no means certain. So at that stage, it's only next week. Will you go for no deal or will you go for delay?
Well, that depends on what Parliament decides to do. We have made a commitment, the Prime Minister's made a commitment.
Well, I'm saying if you lose the vote next week.
Well, if we lose the vote, the commitment that the Prime Minister has made is very straightforward. She will allow Parliament to vote on whether we then move into a no-deal situation. And then if we should go and ask for an extension.
Which way will you vote?
Well, I think I want to see the situation that we're in if that happens. But I hope that doesn't happen, because what I'm working for, alongside all members of the government, is to get that deal through. And I think we can get it through.
Yes, but if you don't, will you yourself, you're somebody who said that no deal may not be the disaster that other people have said it is. Would you be prepared to vote for no deal next week?
Well, I have always said that I thought whatever happens in this negotiation, we are a strong and successful country and we would find a way to prosper. But I also think that no deal would cause huge disruption, and I don't think anyone in the Cabinet wants no deal. What we want is a deal. And I think it's very important to say one last thing. If this deal doesn't go through, then the only solution is to find a deal that will go through. That is the only way that we're going to solve this issue. And so that's why all our effort must be on making sure we can get the changes we need
yes,
to,
as you've
so we
told
get
us
it
a number
through.
of times. I understand that point of the argument. When it comes to this crucial vote next week, if you end up having to vote on no deal, should it be a free vote, do you think, or should the government whip it?
Well, I think that's something the government has to make a decision on, the Prime Minister has to make a decision on, and it's not for me to say that now. I don't think a decision has been taken. But what we are focused on as a government is making sure that we don't actually have to take that decision as a parliament in the first place. And as I say, I think there are some reasonable grounds for hope that we can get there with goodwill on all sides.
You said you'd seen a lot of EU ministers recently, but certainly the rhetoric is being ramped up, particularly by French President Emmanuel Macron. He, in an article, he's talked about it being Brexit symbolising a trap. Who told the British people the truth about their post-Brexit future? Who spoke to them about losing access to the EU market? Who mentioned the risks of peace in Northern Ireland, of restoring the border, and sort of accuses of the UK of retreating into nationalism?
Well, I don't agree with that approach. We had a very robust referendum campaign in which claims were made, and indeed exaggerated claims were made on both sides of the debate. And that's what happens not just in referendums, but in general elections. And British people are quite smart enough to be able to listen to the claims made by politicians in these situations and make their own judgment. And they made a decision. And I think the strategic decision, not just for the UK, but for Europe as well, for President Macron and his colleagues in continental Europe, is the relationship that continental Europe has with the UK after Brexit going to be the closest of friendships? That's what we want, not just a trading relationship, but a diplomatic relationship, a strategic relationship, a relationship between countries that have basically the same values. Or is it going to be a relationship of strategic competition? And what we want is to continue that friendship. And that's what we think is possible.
Jeremy Hunt, many thanks.
Thank you.